Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Connolly with REMAX Preferred Associates. I want to spend a few minutes today digging a little deeper into a question I think a lot of people are asking right now. Can I actually afford to buy a home? And I emphasize the word actually because there's a pretty big difference between what someone might qualify to borrow and what comfortably fits into their life. You see, this question came up again for me this week when I saw a new affordability report estimating that households need to earn about $109,800 a year to comfortably afford the typical home in the US. And I immediately thought about somebody who sees that number and makes, say, 70,000 or 80,000 or 90,000 a year, a good living, and thinks, well, I guess that answers that. Buying a home just isn't realistic for me. And that's really the conversation I want to have with you today. Because that $109,800 number tells us something important about housing affordability in America, but it doesn't necessarily tell you whether you can afford to buy a home. And it certainly doesn't tell the whole story here in Northwest Ohio. So let's take a few minutes and talk about what affordability really means. Real estate is local. What it costs to buy a home in Toledo, Maumee, Perrysburg, Holland, Sylvania, or any other Northwest Ohio community can look very different from what it costs in many other parts of the country. But there's another part of this conversation that I think is even more important. And that is when somebody asks, can I afford to buy a house? I think we first have to decide what do we really mean by can I afford? Because there's a difference between what someone may qualify to borrow and what they're actually comfortable spending every month. A lender can help you understand what you qualify for based on your income, debts, your credit, available funds, and the other pieces of your financial picture. But only you know what you want the rest of your life to look like. Maybe you like to travel. Maybe you're raising kids. Maybe you're trying to save more for retirement. Maybe you have a car payment, student loans, expensive hobbies, or you simply don't want to feel like every dollar you earn is going toward your house. And remember, owning the house means more than just making the mortgage payment. There are property taxes and insurance, utilities, and maintenance. And rest assured, eventually, something is going to break. Because one of the things houses are really good at is figuring out when you weren't planning on spending money. So I think the better question to focus on really becomes what housing payment can I comfortably afford and still live the life I want to live? That's a much more useful conversation than simply asking for the maximum purchase price someone will approve. And while we're talking about affordability, there's another assumption I hear pretty often, and that is I don't have 20% to put down. So clearly, I'm not ready to buy. Well, the good news is you may not need 20% to put down. Depending on your circumstances, there are several financing options that can require considerably less. FHA financing may be a possibility. Eligible veterans and service members may have VA options, and certain properties and locations may qualify for USDA financing. And then there are assistance programs that many people simply don't know exist. Here in Toledo, for example, the Home at Last program can provide purchase assistance to eligible first time buyers. Ohio has home buyer and down payment assistance programs. And if you're still saving toward a future purchase, Ohio Home Buyer Plus may be worth learning about too. Now, I want to be careful here. I'm not telling you that you'll qualify for any particular program. Each one has its own requirements, and your income, credit, household, property, and financial circumstances all matter. But I am saying that I wouldn't disqualify myself before having the conversation. A knowledgeable mortgage professional can look at your actual circumstances and help you understand what options may be available to you. Maybe you find out you're ready now. Maybe you find out you're closer than you thought, but there are a couple of things you should work on first. Or maybe you look at everything and decide that buying a home right now simply doesn't make financial sense for you. And you know what? That's a positive outcome too. That's useful information. Because you see, the purpose of having the conversation isn't to find a way to get you into a house. It's to give you enough information to make a really good decision for you that matches your life and your goals. Mortgage rates are obviously a part of that decision as well. They're higher than the unusually low rates we became accustomed to several years ago, and that absolutely affects the monthly payment. But again, I wouldn't build your decision around trying to guess what rates are going to do next. You've probably even heard somebody say, buy now, refinance later. Well, maybe you will. If rates eventually come down enough, then refinancing could become a good option. But we don't know when or if that will happen. We don't know how far rates might go down. And we don't know what your financial circumstances will look like when they do. So if you're buying a home today, today's payment should make sense for you today. If refinancing becomes a great opportunity later, then wonderful. But it shouldn't be the thing we're depending on to make an uncomfortable payment seem more affordable. And I think that brings us right back to where we started. If you saw that $109,800 number and immediately thought, well, I guess home ownership isn't for me, then I hope you'll reconsider that conclusion. Not because I'm telling you should buy a house. I'm not. I'm simply saying that a national statistic cannot answer a personal question. The better way to find out is to understand what homes actually cost where you want to live, what financing and assistance options may be available to you, what the complete monthly expense would look like, and most importantly, whether that expense fits comfortably into the life you want to live. Maybe the answer is yes. Maybe the answer is not yet. Maybe the answer is no, I'm actually better off where I am right now. Any one of those can be the right answer for you. What matters is that it's your answer, based on good information rather than an assumption. And really, that's why I spend time talking about these things. I don't think good real estate guidance starts with convincing somebody to buy or sell. I think it starts with helping people understand their options well enough to make the decision that's right for them. So until next time, take care and remember, making informed decisions starts with having the right information. If I can ever be a resource for you or for someone you know, I'm always just a phone call away. Thanks for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you out about town.